Well, I've been waiting all week to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Welcome. We're glad you're here, especially those of you who are new. We want to welcome those of you who are joining us live at our King of Prussia campus. It was great being with you last week, and the only time our live video feed has ever messed up is when I was there last week. Scott Summers, if you know Scott, came up and he's like, it was working great until you showed up. So anyway, we're glad you're here. I want to start out by saying this. There's a historian, his name is Niall Ferguson. He said, the law of unintended consequences is the only real law of history. And this is certainly true for myself. Something strange happened to me as a result of Justice Day this past year. For those of you who are new and you weren't here for Justice Day, we brought in world-renowned climatologist Katharine Hayhoe to talk about the effects of climate change and specifically how it's affecting the poor around the world. I was so convicted by the presentation that she gave, but more importantly, the conversations that we had going to and from the airport, that it did something to me. There was a whole series of events that I couldn't have predicted that would happen actually happened. One is, I just went home and very simply said, well, one thing that we can do is we can buy energy-saving light bulbs. And I went and I checked all of our light bulbs. I had already converted about half of them to energy-saving light bulbs. And it wasn't cheap, as you well know if you've done that, but I replaced the rest of our light bulbs that week. And then I went around and I realized that we had a lot of things that were plugged into electrical sockets that we didn't use on a regular basis. And so I went around the house, and if I found any electrical socket that had a wire plugged into it, I pulled it out. And I figured if we hadn't used it over a one-day period of time, when we go back to use that item, we could go and just take the extra step of plugging that item back in, because not only does it waste resources, but it wastes precious energy. And so that affected me. And now this embarrasses me to say this, but for the very first time, I became serious about recycling. And, you know, Lisa has always been the serious recycler in our family. And, you know, I mean, if I had a can or a bottle or a milk jug or something, it went into the recycling bin. But I just wasn't very meticulous about it. But after Justice Day, when we realized how our lifestyle could affect people we have never met before in Indonesia, in Africa, in the communities where we support children, it affected me. And so I bought a recycling can for every room in the house. There's a trash can and a recycling can. And I marked it recycling, which is that's it right there. It's marked recycling. And I contacted our company that handles our recycling and got an inventory list of everything that they want and they can recycle, and became meticulous about separating and recycling, not letting anything go into the trash. Now, before our recycling efforts became serious, on my end at least, we would produce on average around 4 bags of trash every week and 1 bag or canister of recycling. After the switch, we now produced 3 bags of recycling and 1 small bag of trash. Now, I say that because I'm truly embarrassed by that. Lisa has always been the great recycler in our family, and I've always made fun of her. Oh, okay, Al Gore, great inventor of the internet and global warming. So this led me to ask our staff to take a challenge to completely eliminate any plastic bottles in the office, to reduce any at all paper that we could basically show something on a screen, to become meticulous about recycling anything that could be recycled. Once I had a human face to climate change, I saw how my actions were putting the lives of the poor in danger because of the choices that I made that didn't affect me at all. I just needed to become intentional. I needed to become deliberate about it. Wanting to combat climate change led to light bulbs, which led to recycling, but it led to an even larger question. Why am I using so much stuff that needs recycling in the first place? I started asking simple questions like, if I get up in the morning and eat a cup of blueberries, why am I putting them into a paper cup and then turn around and throw that paper cup away? Because I'm transporting it down to my office in the basement, which I have done every single day for the past 365 days. I have used, thrown away, then recycled 365 cups. Why not just put them in a plastic bowl, which I very simply can wash later, I began to notice that there were things that we were throwing away into our trash, food scraps, stuff that we weren't going to eat, and we weren't going to give it to the dog because the stupid dog will poop all over the carpet. Why aren't we composting this stuff? Why are we putting it into landfills where it will go and it will sit and combine with the other things that cannot biodegrade? This led to an even larger question. What if we could never throw our stuff away? Think about this. What if you and I had to live with everything that we bought and consumed? What if we couldn't throw away into a landfill somewhere for future generations, for our children and our grandchildren and their great-grandchildren to build their houses around and on top of? What would happen if everything that we purchased we had to keep on our own property? Well, you and I know what would happen. We would start running out of room and force ourselves to become creative at disposing things. Actions that our grandparents and every single generation before them had to attend to. Ultimately, we would stop buying stuff that we didn't need, that would become wasteful, that would hurt the environment. So my question to you is, have you thought about these things? Have you thought about things like, how much do you pay per square foot for your house? The portion of the mortgage, taxes, electricity, and insurance, what portion do you pay to house stuff that you don't use? Crap that's in your basement and garage, unused rooms in your house. We're paying for those rooms as well as to store that stuff. More importantly, what parts of your home don't you even use? We spend all of our time working and kill ourselves to pay for areas of our homes that we never use, or we use to store junk that serves no real purpose in our lives. And for what? Why are we doing this to ourselves, our community, our environment, and to future generations? Well, today we're beginning not so much a series, but a conversation about something that was first taught by Jesus, then expanded upon by the monastic tradition, and now a whole movement of people have latched onto recently. It's an idea called minimalism. And here's how I defined minimalism. Minimalism is the conscious stripping away, consciously stripping away the extraneous things in my life to make room for God's best for me, my family, and my community. Stripping away commitments, stripping away wasted resources, stripping away debt, stripping away stress. So we're calling this series The More of Less. And what we're going to be talking about is the spiritual principle of minimalism that Jesus taught and was expanded on by the early church. How if we embrace it, it changes everything about our lives. We're going to be talking about less busyness and being more present for people and the most important things in our lives. Less debt and more savings and freedom to be able to make the impact that we want. Putting less junk and additives and bad stuff into our bodies so we can experience more health, more energy, more passion. I'm excited about that week because we have someone who's going to, anyway. And today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about less stuff and more happiness. Jesus gave us very clear steps about how we're to experience abundance and happiness in lives. And it comes from less stuff. Now, to get us started, what I want to do is I want to give you a list of some statistics that an author, Joshua Becker, shared that were startling, eye-opening to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to listen to these, and then I want to ask you which is the one that stands out to you the most. Becker says this: there are 300,000 items in the average American home. How many items do you own? Actual individual items, if you were to count them. The average size of the American home has nearly tripled in size over the past 50 years. Just think of the size of the home of your great-grandparents. 800 to 1,200 square feet max. How big is your garage? 1 out of every 10 Americans rent off-site storage. the fastest growing segment of the commercial real estate industry for the past 4 decades. 25% of people with 2-car garages don't have room to park cars inside of them. Think about that. The U.S. has upwards of 50,000 storage facilities, more than 5 times the number of Starbucks. Currently, there is 7.3 square feet of self-storage space for every person in the United States. This makes it physically possible for every single American to stand all at the same time under the total canopy of self-storage roofing. British research found that the average 10-year-old owns 238 toys, but plays with just 12 every day. The average American woman owns 30 outfits, 1 for every day of the month. In 1930, that figure was 9. How many outfits do you own? You're thinking, hey, you can talk about recycling all you want. Do not go there, all right? The average American spends $1,700 on clothes annually. The average American throws away 65 pounds of clothing every year. Our homes have more television sets than people. Television sets are turned on for more than a third of the day, 8 hours and 14 minutes. Women will spend more than 8 years of their lives shopping. No wonder 93% of teenage girls rank shopping as their favorite pastime. Over the course of our lifetime, we will spend a total of 3,680 hours, or 153 days, searching for misplaced items. Some of you more than others. The research also found that we lose up to 9 items every day, or 198,743 in a lifetime. Phones, keys, sunglasses, and paperwork top the list. The $8 billion home organization industry has more than doubled in size since the early 2000s, growing at a staggering rate of 10% every single year. Home organization, because we need strategies for all of the junk that we own. Okay, so here's the question. Which is the stat that surprised you or hit you the hardest? Which is the one that convicted you the most? Here's the question I want us to think about as followers of Jesus, or for those of you who are here who aren't bought into the whole Christianity and thing, and you're thinking about following the way of Jesus. The question I want us to ask ourselves is this: in what ways are our excess possessions keeping us from enjoying life to the fullest? In other words, all of this stuff, how does it keep us from really enjoying life? Jesus said, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And so what Jesus does, consequently, is he gives 3 specific paths about how to make that happen. And the first is this. The first thing that I would like for us to consider is excess possessions keep us from enjoying life to the fullest, first and foremost because of the extra stress that it creates in our lives. Would you agree or not agree that having more stuff comes with a price? And that price is stress. Everything that we own requires time, money, energy, and focus to maintain. And every increased possession adds anxiety to our lives. Jesus, there's this great section in the Sermon on the Mount where he talks about anxiety, which is worry and anxiety is an issue most people I have found deal with. He prefaces the teaching on anxiety with this statement. Right before he talks about anxiety, he says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and vermin can destroy and where thieves break in and steal. Do you think there's a connection between storing up stuff and anxiety? Probably, according to Jesus. We've got to move stuff, work around stuff, buy stuff, sell stuff, and worry about it getting broken. Let me give you a perfect example. My practice is I buy a car and I keep it for 10 years. I give it to kids or I give it to family members. And this is just me, I only buy Hondas and Toyotas, and that's because they're the lowest cost cars, where I'm going to get the highest impact, miles, reliability, lowest insurability, the whole thing. I have a whole reason I can tell you later about it. So back at the end of 2015, I went to buy a 2015 brand new Honda Accord. Now, this car that I purchased, the reason I buy cars at the end of December, at the very end of December, is because there's a fire sale going on for cars. At the end of the year, when you're getting ready to go into 2016, no one wants on their lot a 2015. So I start shopping for a car around the 20th of the month. Most dealers will not have a car. They'll have to go up to Connecticut to get a car, but they'll find a car, and it will be the exact car I want, and it will be a car that I will get between $4,000 to $6,000 cheaper than the person who bought it at the beginning of the year. I bought my brand new Honda Accord for the exact same price that I bought my Honda Accord in 2011. I tell you this because I care about cars. I'm a car guy. I like cars. I like researching cars. I'll take 2 years to study cars. So I got this brand new car. Lisa said she needed something at the dollar store. So I go to the dollar store to pick something up. I park next to this car. I wasn't paying attention, but it was a new car. It was a nice car. When you get a new car, you're like, I'm not parking next to that guy. There's no way I'm parking next to that. Nope, I'm not. You'll park a mile away to keep people from digging your car. So I pull up to this spot, and all of a sudden, the car next to me swung the back door open and literally smashed it into my door. I go, and then I'm like, that idiot is going to get a piece of my mind. So I threw my door open, turned around, and there was this 3-year-old girl in the back of the seat going, and I looked at her, I said, it's all right, hon. The accidents happen. Crap, I wanted an adult there. I wanted to yell at someone so bad, right? And you couldn't. And the question is, why would you want to own something where you would completely freak out if a 3-year-old girl dented it? As author Kathleen Quirин writes, each thing I own is another thing I have to look after. To keep clean, keep working, keep safe against thieves, each additional item in my home is something I have to pick up, walk around, dust, clean, or keep in storage. They tax my time and attention. More possession means more clutter in my home and in my mind. Now, this doesn't mean Jesus is saying whenever you buy stuff, go out and buy junk. I don't think that at all. In fact, there's nothing wrong, I think, with buying good cars that are going to last a while. There's actually, I don't think anything wrong with getting upset that, wow, I was hoping to keep this thing nice for a long period of time. I just want us to think about how this past month, how did organizing stuff, fixing stuff, buying stuff, or not having money to buy the things we need affect us? How did it affect you? How did it rob you of the quality of life that Jesus envisions for you, your marriage? What kind of stress is it putting on your relationship? What kind of stress is it putting on your family? Past decisions where you've gone into debt for certain things, which basically are binding your hands now and keeping you from doing the things that you truly want to do. There's a reason right after Jesus said, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, that he said, do not worry. And that's because more stuff produces more stress. So when we ask ourselves, how do our excess possessions keep us from experiencing life to the fullest? Stress. But here's another one. Excess waste. Excess waste that could go to help extended family members, people that you know, people in the community, and the poor. One of the great leaders in the early Jesus movement was Jesus' own cousin named John. We know John as John the Baptist. Someone asked John what they should do, what sort of lifestyle that they should embrace in order to prepare themselves to join the Jesus movement. And John told them this. After someone came up to him and asked him this question, he said, anyone who has 2 shirts should share with the one who has none. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to lean next to the person next to you, and I want you to pull out your theological eyes and your bright spiritual understanding, and I want you to look at each other and figure out, what does that verse mean? Go. Just do it real fast. What does that verse mean? Can you put that verse back up there? does that mean? All right, do we need to spend much time on that? I think it means what it says. That anyone who has 2 shirts should share with the one who has none. Now, is there any ambiguity whatsoever about this? Like, do we need to go into the Greek? Maybe there's some Aramaic words in the background. We can look at the history and how it was applied. Do we need to do that? Or can we just say, when I go home today, if I have a shirt that I'm not actively using, there could be someone who could use that shirt, right? Are we good with that? Now, here's my question. It's cold today. Do you have 2 coats? Meaning, is there a perfectly good coat that you're using, and then there's another coat in your closet somewhere that's in perfectly good condition that you're not using? The great Christian thinker Doris Day said this verse means, if you have 2 coats, one of them belongs to the poor. And I want you to think about that seriously. Those of us who claim to be followers of Jesus, who have claimed to allow Him to have mastery and total leadership over our lives. There are people who could be genuinely helped with the excess resources that we keep in our possession. And how good would it feel to be a part of something, a movement, the Jesus movement, that reduced the stress in our own lives by helping those who need it the most? After I wrote this sermon, I felt convicted. I need to go take account of every coat I have in the house. So this week, after I finished my message, I grabbed Lisa after dinner and said, "How many coats do we own?" She said, "I don't know." So we went to our hall closet. And we pulled out every single coat that we have in our hall closet. You need to understand this about my wife. She is a very frugal person. She has a tendency not to throw stuff away. We pulled out 6 different coats between us. Perfectly good coats. Some of them we were wanting to use, we would occasionally use, but by and large, 6 different coats after 3 decades of marriage that people had given to us or that we had purchased or accumulated that we felt that the poor could use. And so we took those 6 coats and we gave them away. Primarily because I didn't want to be a hypocrite today, but simply to see if that's true. Now I want you to ask me a question. Brian, did your life end when you got rid of those 6 coats? Were you more stressed? No. I felt better. As Jesus said, you are more blessed when you give than when you receive. But here's the other thing. That closet was so stuffed full of crap from the last 3 decades, we couldn't move. I literally had to put scuba gear on to go dive into that closet and go find gloves and that sort of thing. Now when you look at that closet, you're like, these are things we actually use, we will use sometime in the future, and it doesn't cause me stress every time I go to this closet. And that closet, to me, is a metaphor for all the different areas of our lives. Credit card balances, checking accounts, savings accounts, or the lack thereof. Different rooms around the house, our own minds and our hearts. How much do we have areas of our lives stuffed full of stuff that we don't need, and it's robbing us of the calm and the centeredness and the focus that we need? There are more than 5,000 advertisements that we get hit every single day telling us what? You're not happy because you don't have our stuff. Whole schools of marketing exist for the express purpose to tell us we're not happy unless we buy their product. Here's the lie. We know stuff doesn't make us happy. When was the last time you really wanted something, and then when you got it, you were like, I actually don't even want this anymore? Happens all the time. If it's stuff that you bought. Now, we need to follow Jesus' model and say, I'm out. Not just because we're taking resources that we could spend on genuine needs of our own or to put into savings for the future, not just because God has given those resources to care for the poor and the oppressed, but because we're screwing up our planet and it's like we don't even care. There is no away that we throw stuff. They don't disappear, they go to landfills. The stuff is never going away. Our great-great-grandchildren are going to be building homes on top of and around this junk that we don't need right now. So in what ways does excess possessions keep us from enjoying life to the fullest? They create extra stress, they create extra waste, and then they give us excess unhappiness. Got a question. Do you really need more things in your life that make you unhappy? Are you like, you know what, I just need more unhappiness in my life? I got to be honest. I wish I could find a book that could teach me, how can I be more unhappy, right? Listen to the words of the Apostle Paul. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Would we? Would we be content with just that? I think if we're intentional, if we're conscious about the decisions we're making, we realize this thing that I'm buying, very rarely is it going to make me happy. I need contentedness before and after the purchase. The spiritual idea of minimalism is the intentional promotion of the things that we value and the removal of things that distract us from that pursuit. I need some minimalism in this sermon. I like travel. I looked at some of the stuff in our basement. This is just stuff through the years. Just junk and toys and all kinds of stuff that you just accumulate. And I thought, I wonder if I took that money and saved it, put it in an account, what would I get? 4% savings, 5% over the last 10 years. Depends on the account. What could I have done with that money? What could I have done with that money? Think about that. Just go in your garage. Look at the stuff. What could you have done with that money? The people you could have helped, the places you could have traveled to, the stuff that you truly want to do right now in your life, but you can't because you don't have the money. You had the money. It's just wasted on other stuff. See, the thing is not to get more organized. The point is to get rid of stuff that we don't need and to stop buying stuff that we don't need. We don't need more space. We need less stuff. Less TV, more reading. Less shopping, more outdoors. Less clutter, more space. Less rush, more slowness. Less consuming, more creating. Less junk, more real food. Less busy work, more impact. Less driving, more walking. Less solitude, less noise, more solitude. Less focus on the future, more on the present. Less work, more pay. And so I have some homework for everyone here. I want you today, when you go to your house or your apartment, wherever you live, I want you to walk around and I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, would my life be better or worse off if we eliminated this item or this room altogether? You don't have to stay in the house you live in. Especially, this is a hot market. Sell your house like that. Do you really need all those bedrooms? Do you need a basement? Do you need a 2-car garage when one would do? You could sell your house and you make a list of every single thing that you actually need in a house. Sell the house you have, make money, go downsize to a house that actually meets your needs better. It's cheaper to insure. It's cheaper to heat. It's cheaper to cool. It's cheaper to maintain. Why is that a terrible idea? Maybe Jesus was onto something here. Second question, what did it cost me to get this item or what is it costing me to maintain this item or room? And number 3, was it worth it? or is it worth it? Here's the truth about stuff. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. Let's pray. Our God, we just pray that as we jump into this conversation about taking seriously very practical teachings that you've given us, that you would give us an open heart, that you would give us open eyes, that you would help us to be consciously not defensive, but to sense something on the other side of consumption, to sense a better way, to sense a path forward beyond what the culture is teaching us, beyond the mold that the culture is trying to squeeze us into. Show us the path forward, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks for watching today's message. For more practical resources to help you and your family, please go to Brian's website at brianjones.com.